Okay, so welcome everybody to this week's version of eoPERCS. Sorry, we had a few tech issues, but we're all ready to go now and very, very excited. So we're really excited to host Makarius Itambu from the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And Makarius will be talking about hominin plant landscapes at Oldupai Gorge in Tanzania from 2 to 1.1 million years. So quick bit of housekeeping before we start. So the format of today's seminar will have welcome announcements for 5 minutes, followed by Makarius's talk, followed by a moderated Q&A. So normally we have tea time, but this week we're not doing this because Makarius is not able to stay with us. But if you have any questions, please do feel free to email him after the talk. And don't forget to send your questions via the chat to the questions at eoPERCS host, who today is Jana. So a bit of housekeeping, eoPERCS values the participation of everybody interested in the paleo sciences, and we ask that you remember to abide by our code of conduct during today's seminar. If you somehow found yourself here without signing that, please take a moment to go to our website and have a read of it before the seminar starts. Please remember to mute yourself for the duration of the talk. You shouldn't be able to unmute yourself, but if you find that you can, please remember to keep yourself muted. And a second reminder that send your questions or any tech problems to the questions at eoPERCS host. We were also including a new function for the question time where you can raise your hand and we'll let you unmute yourself and you can ask your question verbally if you'd like to. We also have closed captions built into Zoom now, and you can, with a little CC button at the bottom of your screen, you can use this to show or hide them. Please remember to nominate all of your amazing early career friends using the link that will be in the chat. And please remember to fill in our weekly feedback forms so we know a little bit more about who's attending the seminars. So now I'm very glad to introduce today's speaker, who is Makarius Itambu. So Makarius did his undergraduate and master's degree at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, followed by his PhD at the University of Calgary in Canada. And he's currently a lecturer at the University of Dar es Salaam. And now I'm going to hand over to Makarius to do his talk. So please feel free to take over the screen share for me. Now it's appearing.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's all good. You're good to go on full screen.
Ready to go?
Yep. All
Ready?
Good. Yep, all fine. Great.
Good. So I'll give a talk about hominin plant landscape at Oldupai Gorge in Tanzania during the time frame from 2 to 1.1 million years ago. My talk today, I will talk briefly on my involvement and the role I played when I was working as a member of the Stone Tools Diet and Sociality SDS project, the project that works in Oldupai since 2015. I will give a synopsis of what the project does, especially on paleoanthropology, issues related to the early human evolution, hominin behaviors, the environment, ancient environments, and ancient diets, briefly, stone tools, but the major focus of my talk today will be about the plant landscape that were occupied by the early humans at this region of northern Tanzania. So mainly the SDS project is the project which is multidisciplinary, focusing on exploring issues related to hominin evolution, hominin adaptation to various environmental settings, but also we do studies, tools that were used by these early humans and how and when these tools changed, and the factors that necessitated the changes of these stone tool technologies, but also we explore issues concerning the raw materials that were procured by early humans in order to manufacture stone tools, as well as we want to underscore issues related to diet of these early humans, whether their diet was mainly formed by consumption of meat, or they were doing both plant resources as well as meat, because we know these people were also active scavengers and hunters as well. So, Oldupai in Tanzania is located in the Arusha region in northern Tanzania, as you can see from this map. And the area is very famous in research related to human origin, because the site have yielded a number of potential hominin remains that and the tools that are useful in understanding the history of mankind. My talk today, I will focus on this area you see below, which is called the Oldupai Gorge Bed 1. And in this picture, you can see the stratigraphic sequences of the Oldupai Gorge. Our research activity that we undertook in this area, we focus in Bed 1, which is 2 million years ago. And the upper part, this one, which is started from 1.7 million years ago. And the gorge itself, if you can see from the satellite map, is a very long depression with 2 branches, and it's almost 45 kilometers is about 100 meters. The mankind were reported were said to be dated between 1.8 to 1.3 million years ago. And these are the examples of the tools that we called other one, such as choppers, percussion, and powdering tools. But I will talk later that our recent discovery have pushed back the age of other one stone tools. Now is 2 million years ago. Unlike that previously, where researchers dated this site, the Bed 1 site, the earliest other one stone tools were said to belong to, they say started to 1.8 million years ago, but currently we know that it's beyond the 1.8. So I will talk a little bit about that later. But also the site also has produced Acheulean stone industrial complexes, as you can see. So it contained a very good sequence of stone tools, from Oldowan, Acheulean to later cultures that is beyond the scope of this talk. More importantly, in this talk, also I will talk a little bit about environment during the Acheulean time, that is 1.7 million years ago. I will also talk about the plant landscape that existed during this time when Homo erectus was available with the Acheulean stone tool technology. I will give my talk on the plant landscape that this early human occupied. As you can see from the stratigraphic sequence here, Bed 1, which we said is 2 million years ago, has produced human remains that belong to Paranthropus boisei, formerly known as Zinjanthropus, but also we have been able to recover remains from Homo habilis, and which is associated with the older one stone tool culture. But in Bed 1 and Bed 2, also human remains of Homo habilis were found, but also in many times Acheulean handaks were found associated with the remains of Homo erectus. So my talk today, I will talk mainly about the plant landscape that were occupied by these early creatures during this bed 1 time, as well as during the period of bed 2. And the question that someone can ask, how do we know about the ancient plant landscape that attracted human settlement to these localities? Because the environment during that time, 2 million years ago, is not the same anymore. So how can we reconstruct this ancient plant environments of vegetation? Our research in Oldupai about ancient plant landscape reconstruction, what do we do? Paleoecological data derived from plant biomarkers and phytoliths, which are 2 indicators that can speak about the nature, structure, and the density of arboreal to grass sedge cover, and are used to establish the proximity of fresh or brackish water sources. But also we use biomarkers such as hydrogen isotopes, which have been interpreted as a proxy for hydrological conditions, and the carbon stable isotopes, which were interpreted also as a proxy to interpret paleo temperatures. In environmental reconstruction, what do? We go in the field, we take sediment samples, we sample them, take them to the lab, then we do analysis of these sediment samples. For example, we do other project members do stable isotope analysis, but also I do with my colleagues phytolith analysis. Other people do pollen analysis in order to reconstruct or to understand the ancient plant landscape that was existed during time in question. For example, in 2015, 2016, we deployed a forensic unit or equipment. You see from the picture, look like a mobile lab, whereby we decided to dig under clean room conditions in order to avoid any contamination possible in the field during the digging. As we know, when we dig, we touch tools or any other archaeological materials, even sediments. So we decided to dig under the clean room condition. This is a mimic of our clean room lab in Canada. So we shifted that idea to Oldupai, where we were digging. We had like from this mobile lab, we had gowning areas where we change our clothes, but also we had to put on gloves, we have shoe covers, hair covers, coverall, you see from the pictures. So we decided to take tools and the sediment samples for residue and the phytolith analysis in the lab. So you can see myself digging under the clean room. The clean room in Oldupai, we also had compressor outside, which were filtering air. We had the AC, but also we have digging equipment that were washed, sterilized. We used caustic soda, digging with air covers, gloves, you see, with coveralls. So we take sediment sample for phytolith analysis, as well for residue analysis from stone tools. This is in Calgary, where we are doing phytolith analysis with my undergrad students. Were helping me to run phytolith samples so as to be able to talk about the nature of plant landscape that existed during 1.8 and 2.7 million years ago. But also here is Professor William Makeda, was also extracting residue from handaks in the lab, the same lab. So he wanted also to understand the residue that are encased around the edges of that Acheulean handaks. These are the tools you can see from excavation that we excavated. We took the lab, we extracted the sediments, but with all these sediments that are encased, the handaks and the cleavers, we took them in Canada at the University of Calgary, whereby we dislodge the sediment. We process them so as to extract the residue and PHYTOLITH that were encased the stone tool. Result from residue tracking is not, I'm not going to talk much about this, but we are also from the handouts, we were able to recover some fibers, hairs, and even blood residue, but mostly we got a lot of PHYTOLITH from stone tools in the lab. But other colleague of mine were also collecting sediment samples for leaf waxy biomarkers in order to reconstruct also ancient environment that existed during the time in question. Generally, which is more important is recent research, which published in Nature. We were able to dig at the Western Gorge of Oldupai, whereby we discovered Oldupai tools. Previously thought that Oldupai in Oldupai is dated between 1.8 to 1.8 million years ago, but currently the new data suggests that the tools were even older than it was thought. A new study by SDS team published in Nature Communication present 2 million years old stone tool from Oldupai Gorge. This finding represents the earliest evidence for Oldupai hominin in this region and show that early humans utilize a great diversity of habitats amidst environmental change. These early human, the Oldupai people in Oldupai, were the makers of this early technology. The study, which published in Nature, said was a cross-disciplinary, which integrating Canadian, Tanzanian principal investigators, along with their partners from Africa, North America, and Europe. This expert described a large assemblage of stone tools, fossil bones, chemical proxies from dental and plant materials, phytogenic silica, which are PHYTOLITH, pollen, and airborne charcoals, which were retrieved from ancient riverbed and lake outcrops. The team discovered the earliest evidence of human activities, which were associated with the paleo habitat at the Oldupai region. The stone tools uncovered belong to the earliest culture, we said, called Oldupai, which is in human evolution is a landmark representing technology-dependent hominins that interacted with the environment in novel ways. For example, by the dietary innovations combining meat and plants. For the first time, the integration of chronometric, sedimentary, archaeological, and environmental data allowed this team to assess the adaptation of Oldupai homins to new physiography and their overall adaptive flexibility. So this hominin in Oldupai during the 2 million years ago occupied a variety and a diversity of emerging disturbed environments. Multiple proxies indicated that the geological, sedimentary, and plant landscape at the site changed a lot and quickly, yet hominins were not deterred by these changes and provisioned here repeatedly and periodically, especially in the western part of the gorge at the site that is known as Oldupai. We found evident that the diversity of habitat used by hominins were staggering. Fenny meadows, woodland mosaics, naturally burned landscape, lakeside palm groves, hyperxeric steppes, etc., etc. So the adaptation to these major geomorphic and ecological transformations did not have an impact on the actual technology hominin used. In this site, we witnessed the evidence of many habitats that were existed, but the stone tool technology did not change. Only one toolkit prevailed amidst unpredictable environments. It is a clear sign that humanity during the time of 2 million years ago was not constrained technologically, Hominins already had the behavioral capacity to expand their geographic range, as they were ready to exploit a multitude of habitat within Africa and probably beyond Africa. One can ask a question. We are talking about ancient landscape, plant landscape, which is the focus of this talk. So how can we say that we can speak about the ancient environment when we don't know the present landscape or Oldupai, or even plant landscape? So this, you can see the picture of Oldupai, which was taken last year during the rain, during the dry season. So when you go to Oldupai, like today, you will find it look like this. So if you go in December during the rainy season, the Oldupai Gorge look like this, as is cool. But during the time frame 2 million years ago up to 1.5 million years ago, this area was a lake, which is now you cannot find a lake nowadays. So evidence from phytolith analysis show that during the 1 and the 2 times, the Oldupai Gorge was wooded and somehow heavily forested, as you can say from reconstruction from this picture. This is evidence from phytolith analysis, especially from my PhD dissertation. But also, past landscape in Oldupai was not like today. It was like this, which is this is an analogy of woodland environment in Tanzania presently. The gorge looked like this, although present is very dry, is composed only with acacia, comifera plants, and very few grasses, and almost dry throughout the year. Phytolith analysis from bed 1 and bed 2 show that the Oldupai Gorge during the time in question was very green, super green, as you can see from the picture, but also a mosaic of woodland and patches of forest. Also, the lake existed with ferns, plants, grasses, springs, and rivers. Plant landscape of Oldupai during bed 2. This is an analogy. The lake also still existed during the bed 2, and you can see probably this provided water to animals and hominins. Bed 2 plant landscape in Oldupai, based on phytolith perspective. During the bed 2 times, the landscape started to expand, plant landscape, but with stream, river channels, but the lake also existed, and was somewhat, the area was wooded with some grasses as well. Oldupai Gorge plant landscape during this time, when you are speaking based on phytolith records, suggested that the area was wooded, dense forest, wetter vegetation during bed 1. But again, it wooded arboreal cover to open grasslands towards bed 2. Bed 1, bed 2 generally are composed of woody arboreal landscape with springs, wetland, which favorable for hominin. A settlement also provided various niches which attracted early humans to settle around or nearby these localities. The vegetation mosaic during this time period. Probably hominins acquired various food resources, water, shade, and hunting activities around these sites. This is the end of my talk. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for your talk. It was really, really exciting. It's so great to see science from so many exciting field landscapes, and from time periods that we don't always delve into it. So just a quick reminder to everybody to send your questions into the questions host via the chat. So we have a few questions in already. So the first one, which I will paste into the chat. So the first question is, Oldupai Gorge seems like it was a really diverse environment, but you also mentioned it is a lake. Do you think that there are a lot of hominid fossils because it was a favorable environment for them to be living, or is it maybe because the lake was good at preserving the fossils?
You say?
So Oldupai Gorge seems like it was a really diverse environment, but you also mentioned that this is a lake. Do you think that there are lots of hominid fossils because it was a favorable environment for them to be living, or is it maybe because the lake was good at preserving the fossils?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, Oldupai Gorge, during the time I'm speaking, was a lake, paleo lake, until 1.5 million years ago, when the Eastern Africa plant landscape expanded and the region experienced a severe drought. And toward from 1.5 to 1 million years ago, the lake disappeared. So the older one site, most of them are found either along the lake or nearby the river channels. That river channels provided fresh water, which we think those attracted both humans and animals to visit frequently those areas in the search for drinkable water. So that's why most of the stone tools and human remains have been found associated around this site nearby the lake. But the lake also disappeared. When it disappeared, that is another issue, which people who does paleo environment, they say because of the environmental change, severe drought in East Africa, which led for the disappearance of the lake, the ancient lake, the lake Oldupai. But also we found the bone because of the nature of the soil, the preservation of the nature of the soil, the sediment is not so much acidic. That's why we found fossil remains are well preserved, unlike other areas in Tanzania. Thank you.
So we have another question through, which I'll also pop in the chat. So did you or your colleagues find any other kinds of fossils in the area, especially of things that may have been living in the lake?
Yeah, Oldupai provide evidence of human evolution from the earliest stage to historical period. And we have so many teams that work in Oldupai, from team from Spain, several of them from Canada. Now we have German partners, we have people from America. So all the people have been, since the time of Leakey was working there, have been able to find the remains of Paranthropus boisei, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and the archaic Homo in Oldupai Gorge. But also the good issue is that these hominin remains have been found associated with stone tools from early Stone Age, Middle Stone Age to later Stone Age. So it's the only site in the world that is provided this very good association and the sequence from the earliest stage of stone tool manufactures to the most recent times. It's unlike other sites, you find the hominin remains, but no stone tools. You find stone tools, but no human remains. So other teams have also found human remains since the time of leakies until the present time. And also the thing I said, these stone tools have been always associated with human remains, stone tools, human remains, stone tools. And the site is well dated also, which is very good.
Nice. So we have another question through.
Right.
So how does the palynological evidence compare to the PHYTOLITH evidence?
Not enough pollen in Oldupai. I think probably because of preservation issue. Normally, PHYTOLITHs are in Oldupai have been able to reconstruct environment from mostly. We have so many studies in bed 1 and few in bed 2, but we have only one, I think, 1 or 2 studies that are trying to use pollen as a proxy to reconstruct plant environment. The reason they have said probably the preservation of the pollen is a very challenging or problematic. No many studies. So, and the plant landscape that I'm talking mainly here, basing on PHYTOLITH record that have been extracted from bed 1 and bed 2 in this region. Pollen, no. Very few. I remember one study only.
Okay, that's cool. So we have one more question. Just click in the chat. So Tanzanians have often been excluded from paleoanthropological research in your own country. How are you and the younger generation of Tanzanian archaeologists changing this for the better?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. We are now trying. The issue, the big problem is the facility in Tanzania. So students, especially young researchers like me, they prefer go and do heritage management studies or conservation or historical archaeology because you don't need lab to process your samples. I'm a very good example of that. I was trained in Canada to do PHYTOLITH analysis, but I came back in Tanzania. We don't have facilities. I cannot go to the lab. I can't do anything. So now I'm doing research in Tanzania, doing excavation along under the rock shelters of the Middle to later Stone Age. I'm trying to collect sediment samples, but I'm planning maybe to send them to Germany or Canada because I cannot go to the lab again. So they find that like expensive paleoanthropology for them is very expensive because you need lab facilities that we don't have. You need training abroad maybe, and we don't have enough training opportunities. So young archaeology, they find that easy to take maybe heritage management classes, do master or PhD degree in heritage management, or do in history here in Tanzania. And this is a very big challenge for us Tanzanians, because we don't, in Tanzania, for example, we don't have like even less than 5 PhDs. People with PhD who are doing paleoanthropology, less than 5. And 3 of them have retired already. We remain with 2 people. So you can see the gap that we are having and the problem that Tanzania is having in paleoanthropology. We cannot do lab here So I was trying to do lab things, but I'm not able to do since I came back from Canada. I'm like almost 2 years now. I cannot do any lab work. That is a big challenge, I can say. Have I answered your question? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I really hope you're able to get more funding so that you can build more labs, get more people involved.
Yeah,
definitely important.
So
to
the status of yeah is archaeology. Most students, especially undergrad, they love heritage management, not paleo. I don't know why. So we have a long way to go to impress them, so that they can have a passion and a desire to do paleoanthropology.
So we have one more question that's come in. So one last one. So how do the living habits of other hominid communities compare in other areas of East Africa?
You say?
So how do the living habits of other hominid communities compare in other areas of East Africa?
Living habitat?
Yes, I think where this one's coming from is because you mentioned about
Eastern Africa?
Yeah. So in
because you
neighboring
mentioned
countries.
About?
So how did other hominid communities like live in other areas of East Africa, and how does it compare to what you're seeing in your area?
It's not the Eastern Africa plant landscape that we are saying during this time period is so much different, because during the period we are saying, especially from 1.8 million years ago to 1.5, environmental and climatic evidence show that there was expansion of plant landscape. The landscape was changing from wooded landscape to savanna grassland, and that ecosystem stretched from Tanzania to Kenya, even to some part of Ethiopia. And most of these early hominin sites are located or found along the Eastern Africa rift systems. So environmentally speaking, there is no significant difference between hominin that evolved in Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. Maybe environmental differences can be observed in the southern part of Africa and South Africa, but Eastern Africa plant landscape during that time were more xeric, open landscape, savanna grassland, which it was a time whereby the region experienced a severe drought. So we assume that there was no significant difference in terms of plant landscape that were occupied by these early hominins across the Eastern African region. No significant difference in terms of climate, also in environmental evidences. Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's so exciting to kind of imagine exactly what these areas would be like and who was around at this time. So we have no more questions. I'll just give everyone 10 more seconds if they want to send anything else in.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we have no more questions. Thank you so much for your talk. It was really, really cool. Lots of nice data and lots of nice science stories. So I'll just take over the screen share from you to close out.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us for this week's version of eoPERCS. Please remember to fill out the weekly feedback form. The link will be in the chat very shortly so that we can learn a bit more about who was here today. And join us next week at 3 p.m. UTC to hear Marcus Adloff from the University of Birmingham in the UK talk about volcanism, weathering, and the changing carbon cycle, linking carbon, strontium, lithium, osmium, and calcium isotope dynamics in an Earth system model. So remember, Makarius can't stay for tea time, so this is the end of this week's seminar, and we really hope we'll see you all again next week.
Thank you. Thank you so much.